Welcome to the Clarity Advisor Show, where you'll learn how to grow your team today. Join Ken Trupke and his guests as they discuss what works and doesn't work to grow your team in today's world. And now, your host, Ken Trupke.
Hello and welcome again to the Clarity Advisor Show. The Irish poet George Bernard Shaw once famously said that the single biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it's taken place. See, we think we're communicating, but we often aren't communicating. At least the messages aren't being received. We might be transmitting, but they're not being received. And communication is so critical in all aspects of life. It's one of, I think, the key life skills is to be able to have good verbal and written communication skills. But again, you transmitting messages and information doesn't make any difference if it's not received. And so, because better communication is going to lead to better results and better relationships, whether that's at home or as parents or kids or friends or at work. And we want better results and we want better relationships. So we need to improve communication. And what we're going to talk about today is the DISC assessment tool to assess behavior types. Now, DISC is not a personality test. It's a behavior assessment. It examines and explains how you are behaving, not like who you are as a person. And it's a tool. And there's a lot of assessment type tools out there. There's Strengths Finder, which I'm a big fan of for other reasons. There's Enneagram, there's Myers-Briggs, and they all have value. They all tell us something about ourselves and tell us something about other people if we know like what their numbers or letters or whatever are. And DISC is no exception. It's a snapshot in time with information that's helpful. It's not the one and only assessment, and it certainly doesn't give a 360-degree deep dive of a person's self. And we don't know ourselves completely because of DISC, and we certainly don't know others completely because of DISC, but it can help. And when you take a DISC assessment, and we'll have links in the show notes of where you can go take that for under $20, you are going to learn something about yourself, and that's helpful. Knowing how you tend to behave and how you tend to communicate is very helpful as a starting point for effective communication. But where DISC really shines is helping you to assess on the fly without asking someone, hey, could you just take this quick DISC assessment for me? You can assess on the fly where they are in that moment. And we'll talk about that too. Assess where they are so that you can effectively communicate to them. You can understand how they're going to receive information based on how you assess their behavior type in the moment. So let's get to it. The DISC model there's four letters that it's called the DISC model because it's the D, I, S, and C. And they're each of four letters around in a quadrant in a circle. So picture a circle with four quadrants. So the circle's divided vertically. There's a left side and a right side. And then horizontally, there's a top and a bottom. Now on the top, there's faster paced, and on the bottom is slower paced. And this isn't fast thinking or slow thinking. It's more processing. The people on the top tend to be faster paced. They tend to think and respond quickly. And sometimes you could say they respond without thinking. They're more the jump, leap and then look, rather than the people on the bottom of the quadrant of the circle tend to be the look and then leap. And people on the top tend to say yes very quickly. They say, "Yep, we'll do that." Okay, wait, we should think about that. How are we going to do that? Or they say, "No, absolutely not." And they say, "Well, wait a minute, maybe we should." Like they're quick to respond, but they don't always think it through, at least in the moment. So that's the fast pace. They also you can notice this because they tend to just be fast. Like you probably notice right now, I tend to talk fast. I tend to move fast. I tend to have like fast gestures. So I tend to be a fast paced person. I tend to behave on the top half of the circle. So on the bottom half of the slower pace, they tend to speak more softly. They tend to speak more slowly. They certainly are going to process more slowly. And with all these things in DISC, there's no good and bad. There's no right or wrong. There's only differences. And the key is to dial into those differences so that you can harness them to be more effective in communication. So slower processing. If you ask a person on the bottom half of the circle a question, they might just pause for a moment and think about it. Now, people on the top half can be like, so what were you thinking? You don't like it? You're not like, whoa, whoa, whoa. They're on the bottom half. Just give them a second to process. They're going to be a little bit slower. They're going to speak softly, speak more slowly, probably move more slowly, maybe slower with their gestures. You're going to see that they have a different pace than the top. And when you're trying to assess somebody on the fly, you can usually tell if they're fast paced or slow paced, just in generally. That's something that you can pretty quickly and pretty accurately assess. Now, that might change, and we'll talk about that. But when you're meeting someone, notice how quickly they speak, how loudly they speak, and how they move. And if it's faster, they're probably a D or an I. And if it's slower, they're probably an S or a C. So that's the top and bottom. And we'll get to the letters in just a second. Now, dividing it over on the left side, you've got the task orientation. And on the right side, you've got a people orientation. So that's the second way we're going to divide the circle, fast and slow. And now we're going to do task and people. Task-oriented people tend to be wondering about what we're getting done. They want to know where you are in the process. What are you thinking? What are you working on? How is it going? Are going to be some questions that they're going to ask. On the people side, people are going to ask, how are you feeling? How's it coming? What's happening with you? It's going to be more people oriented. Now, again, there's no right or wrong. There's just differences. And it's not that task oriented people don't care about people. They do. They're just going to start with the task, the things to get done. Where are we at? What's happening in the process? Whereas the people oriented people are going to be more, they care about tasks too. They care about getting things done too, but they tend to be people first. So how are you feeling? What's going on? What's been happening? Those are their first questions, not where are you at and what's going on with the project. So, so those are your two divisions. Now, if we start in that upper left-hand corner, that's the D. The D is a fast-paced, task-oriented person. And D can stand for a lot of different things. I like to use direct. The D is very direct. They want to get to the point. They're fast-paced and they're about the task. Now, coming down then, still on that task orientation side, is I'm sorry, we're going to go across because we're going to go DISC. So we'll go across on still on the fast paced side. We're going to go from D over to I. So I, again, fast paced, but now instead of task oriented, they're going to be people oriented. So they're going to be more hey, let's go, let's have some fun. Interactive is the word that I like to use with the I's. The I stands for interactive. They want to make friends. They want to move fast and have fun and do things. They're very people oriented, but they're also very fast paced. They want to keep things moving and keep having a good time. Coming down then, still on the people side now, we've got the S, which I like the word steady. The S is going to be the slower paced, people focused person. They're going to be somebody who cares about the team and is everybody feeling good about things? And do we have consensus? Is there any antagonism in the group? Are people not, is there any frustration or anxiety, or are people upset about something? Or is everybody okay? They want to check in on the team because they care about people first and they're a little bit slower paced. And then you come over to the C, and that's for, I like to use consistent. The C is going to be that slower paced task orientation. So they tend to be very focused about getting it right. They're very task oriented. So they want to know what the process is and what the next steps are, but they're not as demanding and fast paced as the D on that task oriented side. They're going to be that slower pace, more deliberative. And I like the word deliberative in general too. If you don't like slow, if slow somehow is like, you're feeling like, wait a minute, are you saying I'm slow? No, I'm saying you're slower paced. Again, not right or wrong, but if you don't like that, use deliberative. So fast paced, kind of, again, leap before they look, and then deliberative. Let's think this through before we make a decision. Let's be more look before we leap. So that's more the C over here. They're more consistent. They want to think it through. It's about the task, but let's be deliberative. So that's your D, fast paced, task oriented. I, fast-paced, people-oriented. S, slower paced, more deliberative, people oriented, and then C, more deliberative task orientation. So that's our DISC orientation. Another way to think about these quadrants is with animals, believe it or not. So starting again with the D, just because the disc starts with D, is a lion, is the animal that I associate with that. So like aggressive, fast pace, moving, and task oriented, right? The lion's going to take something down, right? Then you move over to the I, and that's kind of the otter. The otter is a fun loving animal that wants to go and be around a lot of people and have a lot of excitement. So the otter can represent the I. Then you come down to the steady, and I think of a golden retriever. So they're kind and gentle and caring and want to take care of the group. So that's the golden retriever. And then over on the C is the beaver. The beaver is like almost like an accountant where there's going to be a process and they're going to be very careful and very deliberative. Those animal names come from a book by Gary Smalley and John Trent. And I've always liked that because sometimes it's easier to think of the lion, the otter, the golden retriever, and the beaver than it is to remember what is the DISC again. So that's how we can think about this framework. And now, how do we actually go use this now? Like I said, the disc can be really helpful to get some insight into you. Do you tend to be fast paced or slow paced? Do you tend to be people oriented or task oriented? And where do you tend to fall? DIS or C? And everybody's a blend. Everybody has some of each. Nobody's just 100% of the one, although some people can be a lot more of one than any of the others. But also understand and appreciate that everybody is in the minority. Because there's four choices here. Most people you meet statistically are going to be different from you. If you're a D, that's the most difference because only 10% of the population tend to be Ds. So 90% of the people you meet are not going to be Ds. So the way you like to communicate isn't going to work for them. For the other ones, it's basically 25, 25, 25. Now I get it. That doesn't add up to 100. So it's a little bit different. It's 27 here and 26 there. But whether you're DIS or C, the majority of people you meet, almost 3/4 of the people you meet are going to be something else. So that's why it's so important to be able to understand all four so you can understand yourself and then know how to work with other people. So, and we've talked a little bit about some of the things you can do. So if you tend to be a fast-paced person, if you're either a D or an I, well, when you meet somebody that's a slower paced person, now you might not know right away if they're a C or an S, but you can slow down. It's going to blow their hair back if they had hair, blow their hair back if you come in with your whole DI fast paced thing. So you want to communicate effectively? Slow down a little bit. Pause. Let them talk. Let them have a minute to process before you go, did you hear me? Do you understand? Do you have an answer? Like, give them a second to process. And you can lower your voice a little bit. Now, the opposite's true as well. So if you're an S or a C and you meet a D, well, you might need to pick up the pace a little bit, especially if it's your leader in a company. They've got things to do. They got a busy schedule. They need the bullet points. Try to be prepared with bullet points. I know it's not your natural style, but this isn't about you. This is about communicating effectively. And if you need to communicate effectively with a D or an I, you might need to pick up the pace. So not because you're wrong, but because you want to be more effective. So now let's look at the two sides. If you tend to be task oriented, but you're dealing with a people oriented person, maybe you're you're a D and you want to work with an S. Not only do you want to slow down a little bit, maybe lower your voice, but you might also want to ask them, hey, how you feeling today? How's it going? And if you notice maybe something about them is a little off, that's probably maybe it's something personal, but it's probably affecting their work because S's don't tend to separate very well work from home. And none of us do completely, but S's especially because they're so people oriented. And so you might want to ask before you get into like, hey, I need to know this, this, and this. You might go, hey, how's it going? You okay today? And give them a second to answer and slow down and be quiet. Like, something happened? Yeah. Are you all right? And have that connection. And then they go, no, I'm fine. I was just thinking about something. Oh, okay, great. Well, here's what I need. And now you can go into what you need. I'm not saying you can't be a D and have 3 bullet points when you talk to an S, but just be aware that to make that connection, to have a better relationship, to get better results, to build some trust, all things you want to do, right? Understand where they're coming from. Slow down a little bit. Ask them how they are. Now, flip it around. If you're a people oriented person, let's say you're more that otter I type, and you're going to go talk to a C who's going to be very methodical and slower paced, but very task oriented. You can't come in there and go, "Hey, did you see that game last night? Blah, 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 blah. Did you believe that?" And then I watched that. Like, the C, first of all, it's too much for them. Secondly, they're about the task. They don't want to be friends first. They want to know, did you get what do you need from me? You came to my cubicle or my office or you called me. You must need something. What is it? I want to give it to you so I can get back to work. So if you're the I, you might want to go start out with, "Hey, I was looking for some information. I was hoping you had this, this, and this." After that, you can go ahead and say, "Hey, by the way, did you see the game last night?" Again, the C and the D's aren't anti-people. They don't not do fun things. It's just not where they start. So if you're trying to communicate with them, you might want to start with the task, and then you can go into some people stuff. Maybe they did watch the game, maybe they didn't, but just don't start there because the C wants to get the work done and be methodical and be correct and be precise. And so understand that and appreciate that. So there's just be aware of who you're talking to so that you can communicate more effectively. So that's kind of tip one, is just remember everybody's not like you. And if you want to be effective, you need to understand who they are. Are they fast or slow? And are they task or people? Now, tip number two is in that moment. See, we might change from day to day. We might be one day, we might be something happened at home and we're really excited. We come in and we got much more I going on because we're feeling really good. Whereas normally maybe we're more D and we're more task oriented, but today we're more people oriented. So don't assume that the person you talked to yesterday is going to behave. Again, this isn't a personality, this is behavior. Don't assume they're going to behave the same way. So you want to read them again in this moment. Throughout the day, sometimes it can change. Maybe in the morning, you've got stuff you got to do. You're very focused. You're much more of a C. And in the afternoon, you've got some calls to make and some meetings to go to, and it's a little bit freer. And maybe it's Friday afternoon and you're already thinking through it at the weekend. So maybe you're a little bit more S. So you got to read that when you're reaching people. Are they right now, when I'm talking to them, are they fast or slow? Are they task or people? Don't assume, oh, they're a C. They're always a C. This is how you deal with Cs. These can be labels of people, but it's a label in the moment. It's not labeling the person. You're labeling their behavior in that moment. So don't be quick to assume that yesterday is the same as today and this morning's the same as this afternoon, because it might not be. Third, if there's some conflict, this is a great tool to resolve conflict. What I see often, especially, is with the opposites of the corners. So C's tend to get along with C's, I's tend to get along with I's. There doesn't tend to be a lot of conflict there. But you start getting that faster pace I with the slower pace S, you can get some conflict. But they're both people oriented, so you tend not to. D's and C's, they both want to get things done. Now, the D is a little bit more, let's go. And the C is a little bit more, hey, let's make sure it's right and we're following a process, but they're still very task oriented. Tend to not be a lot of conflict. Conflict tends to come from those corners. You get the D, fast paced task, with the S, slower paced people. And that's why I was using some of those examples. If you're the S needing to talk to the D, you might need to pick up the pace a little bit and start with the work and come back to the personal. If you're the D talking to the S, you might want to slow it down and start with the personal. Should the other person adapt to you? Ideally, yes. But how much control do you have over that? Well, that would be zero. What you have control over is you. So I'm always going to encourage people and teach and suggest and coach that you identify the other person and you adapt to them. Now, hopefully they're at the same time adapting to you and know you, and we're like each trying to open the door for the other person. That's a great place to be. But you can only control you, and you can only guarantee that you can do what you can do. You can't guarantee that they're going to do something. So don't expect the other person to adapt. And I see that sometime with leaders. They're like, well, I'm the leader. My team should adapt to my style. Yeah, they should. I hope they do. But you can't count on that. All you can count on is you as the leader adapting to them. And how powerful is it for a leader to set the example to say, I'm the leader and I'm going to humble myself and learn how your style is working right now, how you're behaving right now. And I'm going to adapt to you because I want to communicate better with you. So I'm going to change. What a great message to send to the team through your actions. And then again, you get everybody doing it, and it's hard to have conflict because everybody's kind of giving everyone else the benefit of the doubt and trying to adapt to them and work with them. But if you do have conflict, it's often in these corners. It could also be the I and the C. The I's coming in and going, bah, 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 but you see the game, blah, blah, blah. And the C's like, okay, don't we have work to do? And you're not following a process. You're all over the map. They tend to read each other wrong. I had a situation with a client one time where a very high D administrator was working with a very high S compliance person. And it was interesting because the compliance person had a lot of C because she had a lot of things that she had to do very specifically for to meet the requirements, but she also had a lot of that golden retriever, that kind of mama bear thing where she wanted to make sure everybody was feeling good about things. And the D admin would send like 2-word responses to emails. That the S would send an email that was like, granted, maybe a little too much information and a lot of fluff, but like to make sure we covered it. And I just want you to know, and we're thinking about some things. And the D responds with like, got it. And of course, the S is like, why is she mad at me? What did I do? Like, well, no, she's not mad at you. That's just how D's respond. Like everything you sent was what she needed. So got it. Don't need anymore. But it can be interpreted as an offensive, like, what did you not like me? You just got to understand we're different. So when we have those situations, you're like, why are you mad at me? Okay, what makes you think I'm mad at you? Well, you sent me a 2-word response. Oh, well, I sent you a 2-word response because those are the only things I need. Basically it was like, thank you, got it. Any of those kind of 2-word, it wasn't rude. It was just really terse and brief. Well, you got to read the room. And the S needs to say, oh yeah, D, of course. Of course. What am I expecting? They're going to write me paragraphs? No, they're not. They're just going to hit me with 2 words. I'm surprised they even responded. You got to remember that's how the D is going to work. And the D's got to remember, like, hey, if I'm going to send an email back to the S, I better put some like dear person and thank you at the end and add a little fluff. And I know the D's are out there thinking like, why would I do that? It's a waste of time. Well, do you want to have an effective communication and build a good, trusting relationship with your S, or do you not care? Assuming you care, you need to adapt. And if it goes sideways and there's conflict, that's when you can step back and go, okay, let's see how I was behaving. Where was I on the DISC model? And where were they on the DISC model? And was it one of these cross sides that messed us up? Was it the S with the D, or was it the C with the I? And just break down that conflict. See, everybody's important. Again, there's no right or wrong. There's just different. And some of the best organizations I've seen have, when you map out all the people and put their dots on the DISC chart, you'll see there's some in the I, there's some in the D, there's some in the S, there's some in the C. They're everywhere. You've got people in all the quadrants, and that's great because that's true diversity. You've got people that put tasks first, people that put people first, people that are fast, and people that are more deliberative. So, people are going to get things done, but we're not going to make mistakes because we're going to think about it. Like, you get all those perspectives. You get great diversity of thought and diversity of approach so that you can come to better answers and you can work better together. There's no right or wrong. There's just different. And if there's different, wouldn't you want to cover all those bases? So for specific jobs, like, you might not want a high I in accounting. You might want to see who's going to be right and be very methodical. And if it's customer support, you might not want a D going, figure it out yourself. I did, click. Like, you might want to get an S who's going to be a little more empathetic and like, tell me about your problem and how are you feeling? How's your day been going? So sorry this is happening to you, right? Different roles might lend themselves better to different letters and different behavior styles, but there's no right or wrong. And sales, it's often assumed that, well, you got to be an I to be in sales. You got to be that glad hand and fast pace. Well, I could walk you through why each of the behavior styles can succeed in sales, because if they each harness their behavior style effectively and they listen and use it in service of communication with their prospect or their customer, well, they're going to be great no matter what. Because it's so much less about who you are than who you're talking to is, and you adapting to them. And as a salesperson, if you can adapt to them, it doesn't matter if you're D, I, S, or C, you can win in sales because you're going to be a better listener. So really, that's a big point. I can't emphasize enough. It's not about you. It's about you using this tool to help communicate effectively with your team. So I encourage you, go to the show note links and find that link to go get the disc and take that test and have your team take that test and then share results and talk about what that might mean. What does it mean that now you found out that I'm an I and you guys are C's and maybe that's part of our conflict? How can we work through that? Or, hey, look, there's 5 of us and 2 of us are I's, but the other ones are D, C, and S. Look at that. We're kind of covering all the bases here. It's exciting. It creates opportunities to collaborate and appreciate each other and come together and be more effective. So consider the DISC model, and I will see you next time on the Clarity Advisors Show. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Clarity Advisors Show. Clarity Advisors is a speaking, training, and consulting firm specializing in helping you simplify your sales and operating systems to improve efficiency and grow your profits. Connect with Clarity Advisors today to learn more about how they can help you improve communication and get your team aligned and engaged for greater success.